Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to see if you can hear me and see the screen okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a really cool project. I have been talking about doing this since basically last October, and I'm finally putting it into action. So I am creating a series for people that know zero about trading. Honestly, I've been getting messages literally daily on Instagram, people that want to learn how to trade stocks. So I'm finally going to create it for you guys and put it all together for you. And I just want to make sure that everybody, hey Bat, can you hear me okay? I hope so. So if you guys have not already signed up, Modern Traders Summit going on June 22nd. You know, if you are one of my close friends, I just realized I have a cute little sticker from my 2-year-old. Please definitely check it out. We have all sorts. I'm trying to actually get a crypto speaker to join the team, or Forex, so that we have a full gamut of different areas of trading where people have all worked hard to go ahead and prosper with their own niche. Because that's what's so cool about trading, is that once you figure it out for yourself and you figure out that niche that works for your personality, you know, you can learn and improve on that, and you can also share that with others. So if there's anybody out there, an amazing Forex trader that you guys know of, I don't trade Forex, but I know a lot of people are really curious about it. So if there's anybody out there that you guys know that you might recommend, that would be awesome. I'd love to hear that. So let's go ahead and start off with the SPY review. So you can see I have it on the weekly. I've got a couple, like here was the upward trend, or excuse me, downward trend from way back in September to October. And Juan, you know what? I don't invest with other people's money. I used to have my Series 7 way back in 2000, but it is not current. So I just trade with my own money, but I do not trade with other people's capital. Okay, thank you, Bat Scientist. So we are on to the SPY. So you can see here we had this upward, you know, wedge going on. We broke this resistance right here, and then it gapped up big time last week, and it held. So right now it looks like we are pretty much clear, right? We tested 287.55, 289.11 might be the next. 288, excuse me, right here, the low of this one where it closed. Opened, excuse me, 288.74. Looks like that's going to be a good test for us, where we almost got there on Friday, 288.63. And then I would say the next level of resistance is probably going to be right around the 290 level, and then up to 291.50. And then, of course, right here where we opened, 292.10.11 is definitely going to be an area to watch. But right now on the weekly, it looks like we are in pretty good motion. When we look back at the monthly, I really like to pull it out on the bigger time frame. Look, it looks like a head and shoulders, and it looks more like we've broken that, right? Because we broke the high of this shoulder, 286.63. And then right here, we sort of had this doji indecision candle before the drop down, and that was at an open of 289.84 and a close of 290.72. So that candle is probably going to hold as resistance for us in this upcoming week. Remember that on the 19th, not this week, but next week, Good Friday, the markets will be closed. So that'll be a shorter week on April 18th will be the close of that week. So that's it for the SPY. You know, going back to the daily, we have had just amazing upward trend. We might have a little bit pull back here more towards the 4 or the 8 before we continue to surge higher, but that's sort of been the trend, right? You see it comes back to the 4. This time it even broke the 8, touched the 15 EMA, and then bounced right back up. Here, dropped below all 3 and then bounced back up. The dots are the 21 EMA. So it looks like it comes down, it tests that 21 EMA and goes up. So, you know, if we do have a pullback, I think that the pullback would be right here, that 282.47 would be the lower end, and then surge higher, back up to 292, potentially 300 before June, right? So let's keep that in mind. Going into the list for the week, well, I mean, we can look at the Russell as well. So Russell, it was in this downward trend, but look at this. On the daily, we tested the 200-day moving average, and we broke and held above it. So that's a pretty strong candle right there, closing at the high of the week. We've got China talks that are going on. Obviously, everything with Trump, Biden, all their BS stuff that's happening as well, but that's just pure politics. Trump, threatening to close down the border for Mexico, that could hurt a couple of businesses that really deal with produce that's coming from there. It would also increase the cost of produce likely in the US. So anybody like Whole Foods would probably profit off of that, right? Because they're going to be increasing. I am feeling pretty bullish too on Amazon. And with Amazon, this is a big player in the market. If you go to, let's see, ETFs with Amazon, you can look and see as well the big ETFs that have exposure to Amazon and how they are going to also be affected in this marketplace. So like FDIS, 24%, ONLN, 23%. So these are going to be ones that are really going to be affected. The largest shareholders, SPY, QQQ, IVV, VOO, and XLY as far as the number of shares. So it's really interesting. I really like watching Amazon to see where the market is going to go. We had this resistance right here also that we broke. So those are the two major ones that I actually look at, are Amazon and SPY, because if the Amazon is going up, I also actually have a watch list of FANG stocks as well, and I will pull up and look at these, all the way down, Netflix and Google. So if all of these are pretty much green on the day, then there's a pretty good likelihood all the indexes are going to be going up. If they are 50-50, it could be a very flat day. If like we only had Facebook down 30 cents and Netflix was a big one that was down, Google 8, but it was down 0.66%. So even these percentages are pretty low, and the other ones pulled it up, with Amazon pulling it up a whole percentage. So definitely check that out. And if you guys are curious about ETFs and what their major holdings on, you can always go here. You can also look like FDIS. You just click on the ticker as well, and it will show you the breakdown of the different stocks inside of it, the top 10 holdings as well. So that's a really cool thing too to see, so that if okay, well, maybe potentially you want to get into an ETF that has a lot of major holdings, and you want to put that in your 401k because you might not be able to trade certain things in your 401k, but you're looking for longer term, or if you're looking for a good dividend investing ETF, you could put all that stuff in there, the top trading stocks, and see which ETFs hold those stocks as well. All right, let's get back to the subject at hand, right, guys? Okay, so the long list. Tom, I will cover Boeing for sure. Honestly, in my opinion, I think with Boeing, let me pull it up. Boeing has had all this negative news, right? And it came down here, it touches 120 simple moving average. This is the 200 simple moving average. And what, in my opinion, is going on, there's a good article about how Boeing has been subsidized by the US, and the fact that it has had all this negative news in doing research as far as, look right here, Amazon cancels, not Amazon, I've got that on my brain. American cancels hundreds more flights with the MAX with 21 minutes ago. All these airlines are being hit hardcore. I think that there's probably going to be lawsuits coming in. I do feel like the US is subsidizing it. I feel like there's more downside to come before we find, I think it's probably, we're testing the 50 right here. I think it's going to come back down, test the 200-day moving average, potentially come and try to test that gap again and come back down. And then if it can't hold this 200-day moving average, potentially down further. If there are more lawsuits, more people canceling, more airlines canceling their orders for the airline. But look, it looks almost like a head and shoulders, right? We've got this peak right here, another head right here, and potentially a shoulder right here. And I think I had it on my short list on Friday. So anybody that got my watch list, look at that. Pretty nice, right? You guys know that I have my levels of resistance and support. So I had to the upside if it breaks 399.95, which was the pre-market high. And if it breaks that low right there of 396.95, this one looks like it's going to be a good short. Sure enough, look at that, 5 points below breaking that. It dropped on the day. Can't be upset with that, right? So it's watching those levels and seeing if they hold or if they get broken, and then that's probably going to be the trend trade for the day. Awesome, Tom. Well, that's it. I mean, a lot of people could be thinking, though, that it's also going to be a short. The big players might be taking it up and in return squeezing it so that they can sell up higher. But I think they were aiming for the 400 sell mark, potentially like that head and shoulders on the daily. So let's get into potential longs for the week. I always say potential because the momentum has been to the upside, but look at this. This has been breaking out, and it does have 138 million in the float with FLR. It is 64% short float volume from Friday. I would put a resistance of 40.53 and a support of 40.31 based on the 15-minute chart. When we pull it back on the yearly, you can see this is prior stuff here, so we will just remove those. I love TradingView for this reason. You can make it so easy. Look, this had been an area that H of the downward trend, right? So this was that bottom part of the H, which looks like it could be resistance. So it might pull back, but if it does go ahead and surge up, I think we've got potential move up to 41.79. If that does break, potentially up here to the 200-day moving average of 44.83. Next on the potential long list, we have Red Robin, which has 12.8 million in the float. You can see, look at all these different levels I had from the past, guys, right? From my watch list. And look, it breaks, boom, comes right down here. Bounces up, obviously this day. I had it again, boom, broke down. And look at that. It's held as resistance for further on. Like, it's so cool to see how the prior levels hold as resistance and support in the future. So right here for support 29.16 and resistance of 29.78, I think the first hurdle would be 30.45, the 50-day simple moving average. And then because it has had a nice upward trend, we've got like a triple bottom right here at 27.30. So it looks like that's pretty good support right there. It had the upward surge. It had 59.88% short float volume on Friday. So just put it on watch. If it breaks those levels, looks like we've got 30.45, then potentially 31.64, and then on up to this prior resistance of 34 potentially. Next on the potential long list, we have UNT. Same scenario. This one has found, looks like a triple bottom back here, and it is continuing up, had a nice strong day on Friday. It was a lot easier to find potential longs than potential shorts because the market is feeling so strong at the present moment. 15.10 for support potentially right here, which looks like it had been resistance in the past, so flipped to be support, and then resistance of 15.28, so a small range right there. Looks like it had large volume at the end of the day, always good as a potential overnight swing. Ending strong, end of the day, large volume. And this one had 37.97% short float volume on Friday and 52.2 million in the float. Well, NASDAQ, honestly, it can go either way. That's why I draw the levels of support, and I always say it's potential because you have to watch and see where the market's going to take it and where the volume is going to take it, because it looks like it's at a resistance right here, but if that resistance gets broken and it has that lower float, then it could squeeze them higher, and it could squeeze up here to 15.58 and then potentially up to 15.83. That's the beauty of the market, is it's the ability to go either direction. And just because you think it's going to go down, a lot of people might be thinking that it's going to go down, and the big guys actually go ahead and start buying and gap it up pre-market early, and it might really squeeze on Monday morning. So it's a potential. Next on the potential long list is ASND. All right, so ASND has had some great ranges here. It has a pretty good average true range throughout the day. On the 15-minute chart right here, you can see I have a primary support of 17.83 right here, which had acted as resistance on Thursday, and then a secondary, if it does break that to the downside, another target if it goes down 116.50, and a resistance to break of 119.39. This has 22.5 million in the float, so it is lower float, and it has 33.77% short float volume on Friday. And when we look at it on the yearly chart, it has had this sort of range. It came down, it tested that 21 EMA, and it looks like it's bouncing back up. If it can break the 20 SMA of 121.10, I think we're going to really see it surge up from here. So we shall see. Although pharmaceuticals do have their moments where they can have, you know, one little bit of bad news. They did have their earnings with a surprise extra 24 cents. So this would be the third day of earnings, fourth day. Third day was here on Friday, so it could come down potentially. Many times I see that it does have a 3-day trend in either direction. If the market liked it to the upside, it will typically be 3 days trending up, and then you have a pullback down, vice versa. If it had negative news, many times you will see that it's 3 days, it finds that bottom, and then it does somewhat curl up before it hits the averages and might continue down or might continue up. Next on the potential long list is AYI, Acuity Brands. So this one has broken free of this resistance level right here, and it had 2 strong up days. You know, the averages are further down below. It might have a bit to downside before it continues up, but looking at it on the 15-minute chart, you know, Thursday we had a nice up day, came back, pulled back sort of middle range of the day. Excuse me, that was Wednesday. Then Thursday, nice upward trend, and Friday pretty much held up between 138.70 and 139.70 as well, 69. So I would look for that range to be broken, potential long, as it has 39.5 million in the float and 48.28% short float volume from Friday. Potential shorts, RPM. So RPM had this big drop on Thursday, Friday as well, closed down a little bit, and I would look for resistance potentially 60.32. I see that 50 simple moving average on the 15-minute right there. That might act as resistance as well if it does break up above. So make sure maybe 60.50 for a clean break to the upside. And if it were to break down further, 59.81 for resistance to the, support to the downside. It did have earnings, and it looks like it gapped up on earnings, and then it just gap and crap basically, right? So it gapped up and then dropped down, bounced, dead cat bounce, and it's continuing down. When we look at it in the yearly chart, you can see it hit that 200-day simple moving average, and it's been curling back. That does not look like a very healthy chart right there with that big downward selling action on that candle to me. Next one on the potential short list, DLTH. Hey, BB Bubble Tea. We have DLTH. So bad earnings, bad day on Friday, gapped down, continued down, closed down. Looks like prior support back here that it found, and I would say on the 15-minute chart, 1755 for support, 1780 for resistance, and like I said, you can see it hit a new 52-week low, bad earnings, potentially more of a sell-off down to back over here to 16.97, so 60 cents. If it does break, I would say this low back here of the low of the year, 16.52, then I would watch out further. If we pull it back on the 5-year chart, you can see that 16.50 has really held in the past. If it breaks below 15.70, looks like there's a bigger move to the downside, down to potentially $14. All right, next on the potential short list, we have Boot. All right, so Boot, it looks like it could be a cup and handle. Look at these 2 downward, selling candlesticks right here. This one we had 2 in a row right here back. This is, weekly chart. All right, so here we've hit resistance, and it came back down, found support, it bounced back up, came up, gapped up, found that same resistance again, and it sold off from there. So looking for a continuation sell-off down to at least potentially 30.28, if not down further, down to I would say 30 after that, and then 29.50 area. Looking for resistance 31.59 and support to be broken of 30.90. Now Boot does have 31.59 million in the float, 28.17 million in the float. And I forgot to tell you, with DLTH, that has 9.9 million, so probably harder to find shares to short on that one. LIVN. So again, earnings on Friday, bad day, gap down, new 52-week low. So we'll have to pull it out further, but for the 15-minute chart, 69.09 for support, 70.08 for resistance. On the 5-year chart, you can see it looks like it found resistance from back here, right? When it first had its IPO back in October of 2015, found its support, excuse me. If we go down further, I would say the next level of support is potentially 63. So potential of $6 to the downside on LIVN, and it does have 48 million in the float. Last one on the potential short list that's probably got hard to find, hard to borrow for shares is LOV. This is a lower float one, lower, average daily share volume traded. I would say 14 for support and 14.50 for resistance. When you do look at it on a yearly chart, you've got this range. It did gap down, but it had that major sell-off down to 12, and then the buyers pushed it back up. So it might bounce up a little bit to 15 before it could potentially continue to the downside, as we do see the averages are starting to cross right here. The 4 has crossed down over the 8 and potentially on down further, but it might have a bounce up to the averages before it continues down. All right, guys, and I do have a couple potential longs this week for longer term swings. So Anadarko Petroleum. So you can see Anadarko, if you go to Equity Clock, has a pretty nice range going into the summer from now until about June, and it's started to cross all of the averages, and it's starting to curl up. I believe, right here that 49.50 might be the next resistance area for it, so a nice $2.50 move before potentially going up further to the 50 range, and then on up to 52 potentially, and on up. So that's a potential longer term swing. Also EAT, same sort of scenario. It's been finding, and it has this bottom right here that I drew that line of potential support 43.29 as a stop, 43.30. Looks like it's found that as a support and continues to bounce off of it. Broke down right here just for a couple days, but it bounced right back up and has been testing it as support. So if we can go ahead and hold above these averages, I think it might have potential curl to the upside. Next one is Charter Communications. They have, you can see back here, obviously this was on my watch list back here when it gapped down, and look at that, back June 1st. It's just had a nice run up, a nice $90 move, up to where it is now, and it might have potential more upside. So I would put 342.50 as a potential support. Thank you, VB Bubble Tea, that's nice. Tech is the beast. Yes, tech has been doing very well. Next one is ADM, Archer Daniel Midlands. So this has had this downward trend. Again, it sort of has upward trend line, right? So it's sort of been holding this. Let's see, let's pull this up here, even more candles right there. So it's been holding that trend. So this one looks like it has a nice longer upward trend to it. We have this rough support here at 42.20, 42 even, maybe if you want to pull it back down a little bit further for potential stop, right? I like to have these here as potential stops. I don't really necessarily will always use hard stops because I know that the market makers do receive them and they go ahead and many times execute them. So I put everything on watch and assess it. So 42, I would say, really as potential support here. But other than that, it's got this nice upward trend motion to it. And it does tend to have that upward motion. When we go back to April, let's see back here, April. Well, this one does have, it does have earnings coming up on the 29th, I think. So be cautious of that. I would watch that. So maybe after the 29th, it might be a good trade up into earnings for the next 3 weeks. All right, guys, is there anything else you guys want to touch on today? Otherwise, I will say have an amazing Sunday evening. Thank you for joining me. If there's anything that you guys would like to see more of or have any questions, please go ahead and shoot me an email or put it in the comments. And thank you guys. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. Carpe Profit, seize those profits one trade at a time. Have a great one, guys. Bye.